All righty. Entrepreneurs, real estate agents, all the same. If you're a real estate agent, you are an entrepreneur. You're going to want to pay attention to the show. We have Samuel Popple with us today. He is a real estate investor, entrepreneur, business owner, operating across multiple verticals. He manages a growing portfolio of short and long-term rental properties across Florida Panhandle. He's co-founder of MP Development Group, where he focuses on raising capital and acquiring land for development. Sam is also the co-host of the Elite Real Estate Podcast, where we met.
Right.
And he's, like I said, he multiple franchises of the Clean Eats cafes. His work centers around building disciplined systems that support long-term wealth creation across businesses, investing, and personal performance. Sam, welcome to the show.
Nah, man, I appreciate you having me on. So I'm excited to get to come on your show after having you on mine.
Yeah, no, this is great. So doing my research for you, and this is going to set the stage for we're talking about discipline. And we didn't talk about this, so I'm throwing this at you cold.
Right.
I came across a before and after picture of you.
Yeah, man.
Tell me about that. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have recognized you.
Yeah, man. So that before photo was taken right after one of the roughest periods of my life. So where I guess it's kind of we could start there with kind of where my origin story that kind of got me to where I was today. So I was always an entrepreneur growing up. I remember probably my first little neighborhood gig I did was going around my neighbor's yards picking up all their pine cones. So down here in the South, we have lots of pine trees, pine cones everywhere. And
Yeah.
so I'd go pick up all the pine cones in my neighbor's yard for $1. That'd be my advertised price, knowing that they'd all feel bad for me because I was so cute and give me 5. And so I just asked for one, that way I didn't sound greedy. And I'd always get a $5 bill for picking them up. But that's, like I said, that was my earliest memories of entrepreneurship. Pull my red wagon with my trash bags to the neighbor's yards. So like I said, did that. As I progressed in life, I babysat, I dog sat. I got to where I even did invisible fences in people's yards for people's dogs. So that was kind of like my first ways I can make a little bit more. I can buy the kit for $350, sell the service for $13.50, and I pocket 1,000. I kind of took the wrong turn of entrepreneurship, and I realized the price spread I had in marijuana in my college.
Not
so, I have one of those stories where I was one of the kids that got in trouble for marijuana back in college, and a lot of regrets that I can kind of laugh and joke about it now, but like I'm not endorsing what I did. It was a learning experience that brought me to today. So anyway, whenever I was in college though, I just said had my marijuana thing going, and I ended up getting in trouble my senior year. Now I went to a collegiate high school, so I actually had my 2-year degree before I even graduated high school, and so I was going to graduate college after 2 years with a double major in business management and marketing and a minor in political science. I was in my very last semester of that. And then I got in my trouble and that path is off. So I end up, this is my part of the story gets a little tough to tell, but it lays the foundation for everything else because very rough part. I was on bond for a little over 2 years after I got in trouble before I actually had to go do what I call it my state sponsored vacation for 3 years. And so I did I ended up going away for 3 years, and in that period, I was going to school at the University of Alabama, so, like I said, I wouldn't have to go away in the state of Alabama. Alabama is extremely overcrowded, so I ended up in that time period of my 3 years, the first 19 months, I was at a holding facility that I was only supposed to be at for 90 days, but they kept me there for 19 months. In that 19 months, I was under 24-hour lockdown. I only went outside 9 times.
wow.
And I said, tough part to tell.
Yeah.
So the 9 times I went outside there, so that's where, like I said, so I went from being more of an active person where I couldn't, and then, like I said, so I luckily people loved me, and so I was able to, they were still sending me money for my books. I was able to get some commissary snacks, and between the snacks and just the laying in the room, going outside or anything, like you didn't really realize it. So once 19 months in, I finally get moved on to like an actual prison. And then where I got to move a little bit, that's when I started realizing how much weight I gained.
Right.
And so I ended up coming home, like I said, just shy of 3 years from that. And so that before photo is 2 days after I came home, and that is the end of my rock bottom. So I started off I get a little emotional telling about it, but
Yeah, I bet.
yeah, but like I said, that was my rock bottom. That day I took that photo. I wanted to get a picture of it because I decided that that was gonna be the last day of the worst time of my life.
Wow.
If you look at that picture, you can see the depression in my face. I was not a happy person. I feel like I let my whole family down. I had a lot of shame, like, with that. I was always voted most likely to succeed, and I was always a good student. So, this wasn't the path that I saw coming. It's not the path anybody saw coming.
Right.
Yeah, it was kinda one of those things, and I go back to it that, yeah, at the time, it was kinda just like I just saw a lot of money be made, and because the way I was doing it, it didn't really feel wrong, and I was so, like I said, so I had to learn from that, and that also re-geared everything I now got. I knew consequences of actions now, I got a better understanding of that than
Yeah.
most
I
people who
bet.
haven't gone through that. I so since I come home, like I said, I decided I was gonna turn everything do everything the right way. I make su everything I do now is with extreme integrity. That's why, like, I'm very transparent about my story, my background, because if you're gonna do business with me, and I had right before I came to this podcast, I'm talking to a lady I had lunch with today who's probably gonna invest $250,000 into my deals. And the reason I got people that are willing to write $250,000 checks to do deals with me is because of how transparent I am in my integrity and stuff. And so I think that's really important in everything I do. So like I said, so that's kind of like where my life shifted and recalibrated because, prior to this, I think I always had some fascination with real estate and I always knew that I was wanting to own rentals one day. But I know that's going to be like my main thing, like it is now. I think at one point I was wanting to be a lawyer and stuff. And so, like I said, I was studying in school to do that, but then after I got in my trouble, that some of those options now aren't available. As a lot of people say, oh, you can go back to school, this, that. You can't sit for the bar exam if you're a convicted felon in a lot of states. So, to your choices, and I understand that like better than anybody. So, going forward, coming home, that's kind of when like I said, I started my health journey. And
When you so let me interrupt real quick. So when you that 2 days after, when you took that photo, at what point did you say, "This is it"? Was it something you were thinking of ahead of time? Like, I could see the path that I'm gonna change when I get out, or was it
yeah, yeah.
just that, like, instant?
Yeah, yeah. So once I went from the holding facility where I wasn't able to go outside or anything, and I got down to the way all prison systems kind of work is you will first go to an intake. Most people don't have to get stuck at a holding facility like I did. That's kind of like a little bit of a unique part of my story, a little bit more to Alabama, but every place goes to like an intake prison, then you go to an honor camp. And so after I went there, I did 2 months at the maximum security ones that everyone rose through. And then after that, they sent me to an honor camp where I did my last like 17 months of the time. And so with that in that honor camp, there wasn't a fence or anything like that. It just I had to stay on the property, and that once it got down there, it was I got to walk and move more. And so that's when I started like thinking about what I was going to do after this. And throughout my whole time, I read. This is where I really got to be grateful for my parents because throughout this, they continue to love me and support me and they sent me tons of books. Biggest blessing I had through my time, better than anybody else ever had it probably in there was the amount of books I got sent. So I had and then basically whenever I would hit my max on the books I could get sent in, I would then talk around to the other inmates and be like, "Hey, what book do you want?"
Start trading.
Cool, I'll get you that book. Someone's gonna send 6 books into you.
Oh,
You
I
keep
get
that one, you bring me this 5. And so and people and everybody would love to do that deal because no one has anybody send them anything. And the deal that I would do with people is like, "Hey, bring me those 5 books. After I read them, if anything that came in that you thought was interesting, I'll give it back to you." Because I'm a fast reader. During that time period, I got to where I could read a novel, a real estate book, or a business book in probably about 4 or 5 days. So pretty much if it was something I wanted, I could read it fast and give it back to you. So that's kind of in that environment too. How to like say carry yourself right, you're respectful, and you can thrive. When I was in there, yeah, I kind of had the right kind of charge that everybody liked you for. I was a marijuana trafficker, so I'm like the top of the marijuana food chain. So there's a little bit of respect with that. At the same time, I'm not hurting anybody. Like
right.
I'm not a killer. I'm not a rapist. I'm not any of the crimes that have a negative connotation. I mean, marijuana is legal in my state now. Yeah. So, so like I said, yes, there's a little bit of, like I said, in my bad situation, I had it as good as I can have in a bad situation is kind of a good way to word it. So like I said, I kind of worked through that process and then know that, like I said, once I was there, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do next. And so I read a lot of real estate books. There's one, I think it was called the Millionaire Next Door. It was about buying like a house a year for 15 years, putting them on 15-year notes. And then on year 16, you got your first house paid off, and you can either refinance them all one year after that. I was fascinated by that. And then I read the Burr book, David Green's on the Burr method: buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. I was pretty intrigued by that. And so I just, like I said, kept reading and knowing that, like, I got to figure this out whenever I come home. And so when I finally came home, that's when I was starting to put everything in action. So at the honor camp, I started walking and moving, but I still didn't really have access to the food, a scale. All I could kind of do was, like I said, move a little bit more. As
Right.
soon as I came home, because I'd always been in the gym scene more on the weightlifting side than anything. So I knew people in that life. And so whenever I came home, I had a really good friend who told me, like, hey, so I had a really good friend who was, like, said he helped coach bodybuilders and stuff like that. And so basically every Sunday I'd go meet him at the gym, kind of help keep me accountable because I was going to get on the scale in front of him. He was going to measure me. They would do measurements just like they do when they're training for, so that way we're tracking weight loss everywhere. And like I said, that really helped me get accountable. And then as time went on, I was able to eventually I started doing my own meal prepping. And then I eventually met this girl at my gym who did meal prep for me. So I'd pay her I think 125 a week for 20 meals.
Nice.
And yeah, so everything was going good. Well, eventually the first clean eats opened up near me. And that's kind of when I first fell in love with that concept. I think I was down about 80 pounds into my total 172-pound weight loss journey. And so with that, one of my friends who was also helping me with my diet, he actually is now an IFBB pro bodybuilder. So top echelon as far as bodybuilders go. He decided after our workout one day, like, hey, let's go check out Clean Eats and we can go get our post workout meal there. So I went there. The menu, I thought it was just great because, like, the whole menu is under 600 calories, except, like, there are a couple items on their Making Muscle menu. So there's,
Okay.
like,
Right.
protein. So everything else, though, is, like, under 600 calories. So me and my buddy Mike, we ordered 3 items off the menu and just halved everything so we could try it. And, man, it was great. And so I was like, "Oh, this is good." And at the same time, I used to have my first business out of when I first came home. I had a pizza restaurant from before I went away, and so that was still kinda going. But then I came home and I started some floating daiquiri barges on a sandbar around Destin, Florida. So,
Nice.
yeah, a lot of people have heard of it. It's called Crab Island. Like I said, it's a submerged sandbar right off Destin, Florida. It's one of the most popular spots to come to in Destin. People come to Destin for 3 reasons: the beaches, fishing, and Crab Island. And everybody, and I'd say as time goes on, more and more people are about renting that pontoon boat to go to Crab Island because that's really great for the whole family 6-hour fishing trip.
Right.
But
Right.
every one of them would go love a day on the bay, some cocktails. So I had, like I said, these restaurant barges out there. And so my very first year out there, I partnered with a guy who was building a second location. He was building a second barge and needed someone to run the one. And I'm usually, and as time's gone on, like before, probably, like I said, life teaches you so many lessons. So I mean, I think before I went away, like many young people, and I do want to reiterate, when I got in my trouble and everything, it was right around the time I turned 21 years old. Like this,
Oh,
I turned 21 in June. I got in trouble in September of that year. So so I want to reiterate how youthful and ignorant I was. Probably a very arrogant and cocky 20-year-old. Now at 36, I'm a very humble guy, knowing that anything can happen to you.
so you keep bumping into these opportunities, and what one of the things in the real estate industry, you need more leads. You just keep popping into these opportunities. Is there some structure behind how this works, or it can't just be luck?
Yeah, those options. And so I came home so hungry with such a chip on my shoulders, I was willing to do anything.
Right.
And my parents saw that. And again, I can't really give my parents enough credit because they didn't have to help me at all afterwards. Like, they gave me a place to stay after I came home. But because I was working and they saw the opportunity, they were willing to put up the capital for that, but they want to own a part of it too. So what they did was they basically agreed to put the money to buy the half that the guy's business for me to go in it. But then they were gonna keep a quarter of equity from themselves, and then I was gonna a quarter. But the deal was, I had to pay them back the full amount.
Right,
So
right.
they put up 75 grand, and I was gonna pay them back and own 25% of that when it was all said and done.
Nice.
The first summer, I thought I was gonna need him more than I thought I did, and so I created an agreement kinda thinking like he wouldn't wanna leave because I put it in there that we all had the first right of refusal to buy each other out for at the time, I put it for like 40 grand for the other half. So keep in mind, we got in half for 75 grand. If he wanted to leave, and I did that to make it so he didn't want out. Well, at the end of the first year, he wanted out, and it was crazy to me, and he was willing to take the 40. Like, he was
Wow.
like, "It's what the contract says, I could do it." So, paid my parents back. Basically, by the time we got to the end of the summer, I'd paid them back almost 40 grand, and
Nice.
they ended up reloaning me again, but this time to buy the other half out. So,
Right.
about the end of the first summer, I'm back to owing them 75 grand again, but now for the 75 grand, I'm owning half the business, and they're gonna own the other half.
Well, this is a seasonal gig, isn't it? Is it
Yes.
constant?
Yeah, we call it the 100 days of summer over here in Destin. So
So you had some time. You're hanging on to this money where there's no business.
yeah, yeah, well, but we make so much money during the summertime. So it's like, my last summer out there, yes, well, let me get to the story. So the end of that summer, when I bought the half, I realized all the problems. Like, I actually realized that the guy we partnered with wasn't really as smart as I thought he was, and honestly, he was the only reason he did as well as he did is because it was just such a good business, but it
Right.
wasn't really run that well. So I went in through and tweaked everything. And so just a couple examples of what I did the business. So when we first started, he had actually decided that he was going to make our barges completely different. So he wanted Coke products on his barge, Pepsi products on mine. His barge was doing burgers and hot dogs. I was going to do tacos. And he actually made the menu on my barge before he even made a single taco. That's something you don't do in a restaurant business.
Right. Right.
Now that I own more restaurants, and actually that was something I actually realized there. That was my first red flag of like, maybe this guy doesn't know as much as I thought he did. Because having had several restaurants, I've had some winners and losers. I realized through my first loser that you have to cost your food right.
Yeah.
And the typical in a restaurant, whatever a menu costs you finish wise, you need to sell it for 3 to 5 times that. And
Yeah.
if you don't sell it for 3 to 5 times that, you're not getting back your food costs, your paper costs, your labor costs, your utility costs, residence like all the costs that factor where you're paying your rent, your insurance, your people. Y'all got to have that markup to be able to achieve that. So like I said, so whenever he was out of the business, and then we also did New Orleans style snowballs. He wanted to be the Baskin Robbins of snowballs. We had like 36 snowball flavors.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have kids, Joe?
I do. Yeah. They're older.
Okay, but when you had kids and you ever took them to get a snowball, they didn't pick out flavors, they picked colors, didn't they?
That's right.
Exactly. Yeah. Every time a kid orders a snowball, he's not ordering by the flavor, he's ordering red, blue, or green,
Same with the gator.
or I want a rainbow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's so I took the snowballs and I cut it down to 12 flavors from the 38. So I
Right.
made sure I had every color represented, and I think I had a couple variations of red because cherry sells and so does tiger's blood. So we did, like I said, so we had it. I cut down the snowballs. I made both barges burger barges because we just had the way our setup was. We were better off for the burgers, and switched everything to all Coke products. And so our
Same. Right.
inventory got cut down
Right.
to less than half. And in the first half of the summer, we paid over double in sales tax for the first half than we paid the whole previous summer because we did over twice the business in the first half that we did the whole previous
Wow.
summer. So year two, we over 4x from year one, and then I owned twice the amount of the business. And then year three, we built a massive barge. We added jet ski rentals, and I did over $250,000 in jet ski rentals alone in that 100 days of summer.
Wow.
So, like I said, it was a great experience, but I had some haters in that mix. They actually the state of Florida created the legal definition of a floating structure for me and the two other guys that had the biggest barges out there because they didn't like our daiquiri business because we had a legal workaround to not needing a liquor license.
Ooh,
We figured it out to the T. The tightrope you had to walk to not get in trouble. And I had undercover ATF agents come out 3 different times to try to bust me doing something wrong, and they couldn't do it because I don't like a lot of people say bending the law, but I like to call it following the law to the T.
That's all right. Right on that T. Right on the line.
Yeah, and so that's what I did, and so so that the state actually created the definition of a floating structure so they could ban alcohol only on floating structures, so it wouldn't affect vessels
Gotcha.
in the Crab Island area, and so once I really saw that how hard they were coming at me to try to get rid of this business, that's when I knew I needed something else, and so that's kinda where Clean Eats came in, And so I'm in the middle of my weight loss journey, 80 pounds down, clean eats, I discover it, and I'm like, "Oh, wow, this is great. I think I could do something like this, and then this is gonna keep me motivated to keep my weight loss down," because anybody who's ever had a big weight loss knows that keeping it off is just as hard or harder than the initial weight loss, and yeah.
I wanna go back 'cause you just nailed it. You got some serious discipline to make all this happen. What is it that keeps you that disciplined? How do you stay on track?
Man, yeah, I think you just gotta have, like, some things in your mind that are, like, bigger than yourself, and so because right now, I'm the fuck up of my family who, and
So
so, I
when
mean,
you did that, when you hired that, what did that do to your business when you started using other people to leverage out your time?
it made it great. So like I said, the ye between year 1 and year 2, whenever I changed up everything, and like I said, I eliminated him as my partner, now I had half. Yeah, I realize now that, okay, so I'm working it. Like, I'm on one food restaurant food barge, he's on other. These food barges are kinda like food trucks just floating. And so I'm really working. I have, like, maybe one person in there helping me, or, like, I'd be taking orders and they'd be cooking or vice versa. So it's very, very I do everything. The year 2, I realized, like, I can't run it like that because if there's a problem over on the other barge, I gotta be able to go over there and help. So the way I did it was I actually bought a small dinghy that I could go and zip in between both barges, and so I had 2 people on one, 2 people on the other, and then I would be running in between, but I'd also be going around the island marketing. So I'm also, like, going around all the other boats, and then year 3 was when it actually this is actually year 2 is when the other guys. So when I first started, I had 2 of them. My competition, it was 2 other guys, and they had bigger platforms. So year 2, when I got that dinghy, I was like, "Man," because at the time, mine were so little compared to, like, the other ones that had big decks to go sit on, and so I was like, "Well, how am I gonna compete?" So I ordered 10,000 plastic cups with my logos on it, and a super good price, and then so I just went around the island in my dinghy, giving out the cups for free, and I just get everyone free souvenir cups. I was like, "Hey," yeah, and I show up, everybody's boat with so much energy. I had my big straw hat on. I just called myself the Island Man. I was be like, "Hey guys, you guys want some free souvenir cups?" So I just pitch them as soon as the cups are in their hands. I don't say anything about a pitch head time. I'm giving is give, give, give.
Yeah,
Second, they're holding my cups and receive the gift. Then I say, "Hey guys, go over to any of the green barges and we'll fill those up for $10." I was like, "Everybody else in the island will sell you a 20-ounce cup for 15 bucks. Those cups are 22 ounces. You can get $10 refills all day long." And
nice.
so when I went out on the island, like I said, I'd go hit all those boats up. And like I said, I'd probably get out there at probably like 9:30. My barge is all set up at 10. Everyone else is not really even getting anyone on their barges until like 11:30. By 10:30, my barges looked like The Walking Dead was walking towards them because people were just walking through the island carrying the cups like zombies, heading straight to my barges. And so I'd have lines wrapped around my barge, people standing in the water, just like knee to waist deep water. People just standing in the water waiting on daiquiris around my barges. Well, everyone else is still waiting on their first customer.
That's
And
awesome.
so about halfway through the summer, I get the we joke about there's this guy, we kinda call him the pontoon mafia. It's this old guy from Louisiana who he's the personal backer to, like, all the pontoon companies, down by the docks, and he's a silent partner in one of the restaurant barges out there.
Yeah,
One of their guys came up to me and kinda like stepped down on me. It was like, "Hey, if you don't quit going boat to boat, get out those cups, we're gonna put 100 jet skis out here selling daiquiris." And here's the deal.
right.
So between those, people kinda at that point knew, like, that they had to work a deal. So we at the same time, the county was coming hard, so we actually formed up the Crab Island Business Association, and everyone who was my enemy became my friend
Nice.
as we had to
That
do with being in the county. But then at the same time, we now all came together on prices. So we all like say, okay, we all won't sell daiquiris under this price. We'll as they're passing these laws to try to get rid of the overnight anchoring. I realized like, hey, look, even if I postpone this or stay in this business another year, I can't really plan out the next 10 because they're working too hard to try to get rid of me. And really I need some for longevity. And so I knew that, hey, these are gonna come back at some point. I don't really know when, but these will eventually hit that old price. And so as I'm talking to her hanging out by the pool one time, she's telling me that, yeah, so Jack, they stay in that one, but they rent out this one. and they get like 40, I think it told me like 37,000 a year. And at the time, nowadays, I know about the 1% rule, 2% rule, and I know about every real estate acronym you could throw. At this point in my life, I knew nothing. Like I didn't know what any of that meant. But I'm smart enough to know that, like, hey, if you can get 40 grand back on something that you're only paying like 145 for, like, I'm doing enough math, like, well, I think you get all your money back in 4 years. That sounds pretty good. And again, I'm still naive at the point. Like, I don't know that I need to be careful of like HOAs, all this stuff, but I'm just highballing it. I'm like, okay, that sounds like it would work. And so I also I had a dog at the time. I had an XL pit bull that, and you can't really get a lot of places to rent to you with
Right.
one. And so I knew I had to buy the place. And so like I said, so I ended up saving up and bought that, knowing that I could move out of it and turn to a vacation rental. So I lived there for 1 year. And then I moved into a super, super shitty 2 bedroom, 1 bath triplex unit where I was able to rent that for $1,000 a month, the place I stayed. But my condo paid that rent, paid my mortgage, and then I was still able to save some more. So now I'm living for free. My condo is appreciating, and I'm still rolling. So I'm now in my first year of clean eats, going with that. Well, finally get my second store open. Well, at the same time, real estate appreciated enough where I find out, like, I start noticing that, like, the condo I paid 165 for my condo. I start noticing that, like, hey, it looks like condos are selling for going up. So I start going to some real estate meetups, understanding some stuff. I learned about cash out refinances and how, like, oh, you can pull the equity,
Right.
like, and that's all tax free. And so at this point, I think it's about, I bought it in 2018, so this is 2020. I do a cash out refi. My mortgage payment went up by $50, so almost no
Wow.
change for the sake of
Wow.
things, like $50. I put out 85 grand cash. At the time, I think my, like, best year of life, I made 70,000. The single let me rephrase, single largest amount of legal money I've ever held in my hand. I might have had some bigger paydays in the past, but that was, like, my first, real legit check, and so and my mind was blown. And so with that, I took that money and I bought my first flip. With limited flipping experience, I talked to some different lenders, and I got a lender to approve me. And like a lot of lenders, and this is kind of any advice for real estate people out there, lenders wanna approve you for the most part. Like,
Oh, they
they
can. They
they
absolutely.
wanna get you through there. So, like, be super honest with your lender because they might fudge things for you. Like, if you tell, and that's basically kinda what this guy did, was like, "Well, tell me all." Yeah.
Careful with that one.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he's like, basically, he's like, "Tell me all the experience you had." And so I was like, "Well, I've renovated my pizza restaurant. I did that renovation, this one renovation." So, 3 restaurants that I
Okay.
the build outs on. And so he basically I let him write up my experience report, and
Yeah.
so, like I said, I probably wouldn't have felt comfortable handwriting all that stuff myself. But look, if he like, "Hey, this is your experience, Sam, based on, I think you should be good." So I went with it. And the deal they had to do, though, for my first one was that I had to put the whole year of interest payments in escrow. So my very first one, the purchase price of it was 180. I had to put about 70,000 into it, but my lender ended up covering it. Was they it was they let's see, they did 85% of purchase and 100% of rehab. So
Nice.
basically, I had to put up, I think it was $65,000. So, like, you got my 85 grand back, whatever. I put up 65 of it to lock down this house. Well, the people I worked with were super great because they actually found me a buyer in the middle of me renovating it. And
Nice.
so my very first flip, and I tell people, you almost don't want to get this lucky on the first
That's
one,
right. That's
but
right.
because if you made you made it too easy, and it did a little bit. I learned how to, but I sold that very first one 92 days from closing to closing. Every Monday, and I live in Pensacola, Florida. There's this restaurant here called Five Sisters. Every Monday they do Meatloaf Monday, where it's like $5 for meatloaf and 2 sides. Usually at 4:30, me and my business partner Will, we always go, and then we shoot it out to all of our subcontractors and people we work with, real estate people we know. "Hey guys, we're going to Meatloaf Monday at Five Sisters at 4:30. Anybody wants to come, come." We usually buy everyone's dinner as long as they get the meatloaf.
Sure.
And but that way too, it's like, so we do that so he and I can connect, calibrate where we are on the stuff. And so, like, we do a lot of partner deals. A lot of people that we have people that own their own lots. that would rather us come and just take over and build with them and then split it with them because they realize we had a couple people do this that have done it on their own and then came to us to do it afterwards because even though they're gonna take half, we're gonna take half, we build it so much faster and so much more efficiently that they're not getting that much less than they would have got by their own, but
Right.
we're cutting it down in half the time.
Business since you got out is been built on trust. How do you establish that with people you don't know, especially like you were saying with the background that you have? How do you do that?
Yeah, it's transparency. Like my lunch meeting today when I had with the lady, she was telling me because I tell everyone up front too when I kind of do these meetings that, hey guys, I'm here. If you got any questions you actually want to learn about real estate, I have no problem answering. I'll tell you everything I know and I'll let you. And most of the people wind up wanting to do the deal with me because they realize that like it's just they'll get about the same amount of money they'd go get trying to do something completely by their own, but not have to go figure it out. Like a lot of my deals, I my starting point is usually between 50 and $100,000 where I'll just pay out a flat return. But usually like with 50,000 you kind of return. So when you have it locked in, I'm showing you the house and I'm personally guaranteeing it with my partner. Like we signed a JV agreement where you're kind of loaning the money to our LLC, and then my partner and I personally guarantee the loan. And that's kind of like a way we counteract having to put a lien on the property, but then people still know that they can counter get it done. And like I said, I think it's just the trust and that the fact that I can't, if you go to my Instagram right now,
Right.
I can only fake so many of them before it's like you can literally go. And I mean, like right now, like when I took her on a little tour of Pensacola, we went through 3 of my active builds and then I showed her 2 finished houses. And so I think that the key is just being honest with people and don't bullshit people. And the other thing too is like if I don't know someone, I don't know, and I don't try to ever pretend that like I know more than I know in my partnership. Like at today's meeting, I was constantly letting her know that one of the reasons everything we do works so well is not necessarily because of me, it's because my business partner Will has all this extra building experience and stuff.
Right.
He used to work for D.R. Horton. He left, I think 1 year he built 180 townhomes for them
Right.
that he oversaw. 1 year he left them and went to like a very high-end builder in the luxury market of 30A where he was building went from building production homes to $10 million houses.
Right. So he's got it. That's
Yeah,
great.
so he's got more building experience in, like, 3 years than most people would get, and so, like I said, so I let people know what I know, which I pretty much definitely understand real estate investing, the capital structures, and just kinda like the future of that, and then, like I said, I lean on the other experts on the building side.
Yeah. So where do you see trust being broken? Like what has that ever happened and what would cause something like that if it hasn't?
Yeah, yeah. So in my deals, I don't at this point we like to do it, but I think where a lot of people have to look at for is like I said, you got to look at people's track records, what they've done, and look at too. I guess look at any inconsistencies, what they're saying, and stuff like that. But with us, it's like I said, I just very want to be always transparent, cards on the table. Like in any kind of partnership I do, we like anytime we have like right now we got 2 different builds going where we're doing 50-50 partner builds on these. So one of them we're doing a duplex where we're actually building the duplex on his property. On another one, this guy actually he as another GC we're working with, he actually provided the capital to buy the land. We're going to be providing the capital to build the houses on it. And with each of those deals, it's just very highlight defining everything up front. You got to go ahead and face some of those uncomfortable conversations. Just ask them of the deal. I think a mistake a lot of people make early on, and I think you when I was younger, I'd be more likely to do this. I've seen a lot of other people. I don't want to say it's exclusively to young people, but you see it more in the younger people. But you really see it with anyone new is your people, I think, count on they leave too much unsaid. They don't have the uncomfortable conversation up front.
Right.
They don't say like, "Hey, look, if everything goes south and we want to split, how would we split?" And so, like in my long-term deals that I do where we're gonna hold rentals with people, I draw everything up for 5-year contracts.
Good.
So, like the duplex that we're about to build with the guy, we're gonna keep that as a rental together. Our agreement right now is to hold it for 5 years. In 5 years, we're gonna automatically sell it. Like that's in the deal that we sell it 5 years. But we can all have a conversation, and if we all agree to keep it, we can keep it and refinance it.
Yeah.
But then we'll commit for another 5 years. But this way, we know that, hey, look, if something's not going right, we have an end date, and the
Right.
end date's
Right.
there, and this is
You got
exactly
you.
how it go. And I think you also gotta ask yourself, you gotta take certain things like one element like I thought about in holding real estate that'd be uncomfortable is just like the part that people could screw you wrong is, well, who's managing the property? Who's going to collect that? And who's going to take care of that? One of the ways I'm alleviating that from even being an issue is that we're using a third party property manager. So just automatically when we finish, it's gonna go to this property manager that we both agreed to ahead of time. They're gonna handle this, and then we also agreed to a predetermined reserve. So at the end of this deal, we wanna keep a $15,000 reserve in the bank, and so once we do our refi, he'll get his lot money back, we'll get our construction funds back, and then we'll pull out an extra 15 grand, leave it in the bank.
Nice.
Every January, once we have the beginning of the new year, we got the previous year in, we'll evaluate our bank account. Everything over that reserve, will split 50/50.
That's
And
perfect.
and then we
That's
leave
great.
the 15, and then we keep going. And like I said, it's just trying to that's gonna be an uncomfortable conversation. Because now, well, we can't leave it broken, so someone's gonna have to just pay to fix it, and then how are we gonna guarantee the other guy gets his money back? Well, probably with new construction, that's highly unlikely, but then we have that $15,000 reserve, it's damn near impossible because we can replace both ACs for
Right,
that.
right, right.
Fully, and they're brand new, and they're under warranty, so that won't even be a thing. So,
Yeah,
but it's just like try to have those I think you try to think of everywhere it can go wrong and do that. Like in my partner and I, we asked if we ever wanted to split, uncomfortable conversations. And what I figured out too is the more you have those kind of conversations and plan it out, the less likely it is for anything bad to happen.
yeah.
Because
Yeah, so, we gotta wrap this up. This went
yeah,
way longer. I thought we were gonna be 20, 30 minutes. Your
yeah.
story is unbelievable. I'm so happy you were here to talk about it.
Yeah.
You've done so much, and we touched on some real fundamental aspects of a business. The one, trust, right? Honesty, building trust is super important and when you're dealing with people. Secondly is the discipline, right? And the structure around your calendar. What is it that if any one of those was stronger than the other, which one would you say is the first fundamental thing you have to start with?
So I would say discipline within yourself because so no one's going to even trust you if you don't have your own self-discipline. Like if you're not disciplined enough to show up on time to things that
Yeah,
so people got to see that like, oh, that person's is a disciplined man and he's a man of character. So I think those are like I think kind of go hand in hand is like I said because I feel like I'm not going to say you don't, but I also feel like it's not as often that you find someone who's very disciplined, who then also has poor character. Most disciplined people are people that do have, I think, a higher moral character. Not always,
right,
exceptions to
right.
the rule. Yeah, yeah. Just because you're disciplined and work average, it doesn't mean you're a good person. But I like I said, there's a lot of attributes I think though that do go hand in hand with that. But then, I mean, trust really is everything in business. I mean, I really think like my parents were really big on it when I was younger, and I think it's really stuck with me. And that's like one of the things like I realized like after I made my mistakes and stuff because even through my mistakes, I did everything kind of like still I was doing everything in an entrepreneurial as an entrepreneur, and I didn't really have any bad intentions in it. But it was kind of like just one of those things like, oh yeah, what I did was wrong and I needed to correct that. And so, but like I said, going forward, it was really just like I said about building the trust and relationships with people that I knew that, like I said, we could do a lot of business going forward. And so, like I said, without trust, you won't have a business.
You make this look so easy. Give us the real deal. What keeps you up at night? Where are your struggles internally with all that stuff that's going on?
Yeah, so, I mean, I think today I think where some of my biggest stress still comes from is my restaurant side a little bit, runs super smooth. Being in a franchise system, I don't have control over everything. That's a little bit of stuff I had to learn because I had some restaurants where I wasn't a franchisee. The Crab Island one, I thrived. My pizza one, I learned a lot. And so but through this, so with that, I learned too that like so there's some limitations in this franchise system and that stress me out a little bit because like there's some things I'm dealing with that are a little bit outside of my control. But then the way I deal with that stress is I turn around and like, well, what can I control and what can I focus on? And so that's where I kind of like said focus a whole lot of my time on my real estate deals because if I'm ever in a crunch or need something, I know all I got to do is find the right deal. At this point, this wasn't like my day one thing, but it's just like now that I am where I am, I have a little bit of a waiting list now for people that want to invest in my deals. So
Yeah,
like, and again, I'm finally in the right position, have the right kind
right.
of problem I wanna have. But with that, I now know that, hey, if I wanna generate some money, all I have to do is go put in some work and find a deal. And because I have the capital already on standby. So at this point, I know I can go be the creator of my own destiny just by me going out and find and like I said, working really hard to find the right deal. And we're constantly putting out, try to get more lots steered our way. We're really good at acquisitions. We're pretty much in most of our properties. We buy the majority of our lots at under 10% of ARV cost. So
Wow.
if I'm building a house and I'm going to sell it for 450, I can probably tell you I did not pay more than 45 grand for the lot. And doing that leaves me a lot of room in every deal. So pretty much most of my deals, especially when I'm under at a really under a 400 price point and under for ARV, I'd actually don't ever have to sell them. I can keep every single one of those because they refinance easily with a DSCR loan and cash flow.
Nice.
So so there's a lot of security there too.
Yeah, what a story.
Uh,
Journey's incredible, and you're not even close to being done.
yeah, you know, trying to be on Grant Cardone's level one day.
There you go. So, yeah. So you shared a lot. If somebody wants to reach out to you, follow, what's the best thing for you to do for them?
Yes, easiest way to follow me and watch everything I'm doing is my Instagram. So like I said, on Instagram, Sam_Florida man. You can go to eliterealestatepodcast.com and check out some of our podcast episodes. I got a thing on that page where you can shoot the info thing to me there. If you got any, I'm always buying deals through the Pensacola, Florida area. So you happen to be listening, you're down this area, want to buy some deals. And then as we talked about all the things I'm juggling, I actually just started working with as a partner in TCO Assets to do some commercial acquisitions. So
Oh,
I'm
wow.
helping with commercial acquisitions. So actually, if you go to tcoassets.com, you'll see me as one of the featured partners there. And I am currently looking for everything from hotel and multifamily deals to industrial flex and RV parks. And so we have a buyers list of people that buy those commercial assets all across the country, especially in Texas and Florida. So, like I said, check me out there at tcoassets.com.
Fantastic. Sam, this was really great. Really, really great. I really appreciate your time, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we'll have to do it again. And your episode should be coming out here in the next couple of weeks on the podcast. So we'll have to stay tuned and check that out.
Yeah. Hey, viewers, subscribe to this channel and follow. You're going to get great people like Sam coming on a weekly basis. Be your best. Have fun. That was incredible, man.
Yeah.